If you can't do it, then make up a version of you who can. If you have been stuck under the same ceiling in your business, in your life, with your income, the number of clients that you have, the conversations that you want to be having with your partner, in your body transformation, in your fat loss journey, whatever it is, then you might need an alter ego. And I know this sounds a little bit crazy, a little bit wacky, a little bit woo-woo, but in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why it might just be the most powerful thing that you can do to change not only your results, but your entire life. And why even as a mindset and subconscious coach, this is actually something that I prescribe for my clients who are building towards 10, 20, 30K months and who are looking to completely rebrand themselves and their businesses so that they can see, hold, and maintain the level of success that they have always fucking dreamed of. And so let's dive in. Now, if you are new here, hi, I'm Beth. I'm the founder of Internal Rebrand. I'm a subconscious mentor for women in business who are ready to completely shift their self-concept so that their business can fucking blow up. Because you will hear me say time and time again, your business cannot outgrow the identity that you hold. Now, when people are talking about having an alter ego, what they are actually talking about is changing their identity one step removed. And identity, limiting beliefs, mindset, subconscious are all these buzzwords that I feel are thrown around a lot in business. Even words like nervous system regulation, manifestation, energetics, astrology. And to each one of those, though the concepts, the words seem to mean different things. But alter ego is a concept that I saw weaved in a lot through this 2026, rebranding yourself through 2026, that was all over TikTok and social media at the start of this year. And so if your feed looks like this on TikTok, this was one of the ways that people were talking about rebranding yourself. But just like those words and those buzzwords, that concept of inventing an alter ego just seems to miss the mark. And so we're going to be breaking this down in today's video, and I'm going to be teaching you not only how to actually build an alter ego, but I'm going to teach you the subconscious way. I'm going to teach you how to do this so that you actually internally rebrand. Now, when we look, for example, at the concept of the rebrand yourself in 2026, right? The big trend that we all saw, what we were talking about was the ways that people actually try to change their life. And if you go back and watch any of the trending videos, it was journaling. I shit you not. I was seeing things like drink lemon water. I was seeing things like go outside. Like, okay, I am absolutely not bashing those things. Like, please make sure as a fully grown fucking woman that you are hydrating, that you are having more than like a liter of water a day. Respectfully, grow the fuck up. I know you can handle actually staying on top of keeping your body hydrated. I am not shitting on making sure that you're getting outside, enjoying the fresh air, the vitamin D, the sunshine, actually moving your body 1000%. But what all of that trend alluded to, the same way that just talking about inventing an alter ego talks about, is that you change your habits, you change your behaviors, you change your actions, and then eventually you will become a different person. For example, going to the gym more, or maybe even starting to run. And if you run, every single day or 5 days a week, because we need rest, then eventually you will identify as someone who is a runner. If you post more, right? Let's say one of your goals is to grow visibility online. Let's say you are a solo entrepreneur and you want to get in front of more eyes to grow your business. And let's say the goal therefore was like, right, well, I want to post more. I want to post every single day. And therefore I will post and post and post until I identify someone who is either a consistent poster, maybe even until I am a content creator. And you start to then identify with that identity as a label. Maybe it's being more disciplined, like I'm going to follow through on every single thing that I say until I identify as someone who is a disciplined, consistent person. But I did a video about this because the problem is that 3 months down the line, most people will have fallen off of track. They will have self-sabotage. They will start getting stuck in loops of procrastination, of overwhelm, of avoidance. of shaming themselves, of feeling guilt, and then they will end up starting over, and it becomes a self-perpetuating loop. And then you eventually become consistent, just not in the specific action that you actually wanted to take. And it is because they are trying to act like someone new while still identifying as the old version of themselves. And I'm going to talk more about this in this video, but this is exactly why I loathe the term fake it till you make it. There is a reason that you feel so disconnected, and there is also a reason that you felt the need to fake it in the first place. So what we end up doing is slapping a surface level solution on a deeper problem. We end up just putting a band-aid on something and then leave this festering wound underneath. So with my trusty whiteboard, you know it gets serious when I get this out, I am going to show you something that you need to understand before we get any further. Now, this is a concept in NLP, which is a work that I do. It stands for neuro-linguistic programming, and this is called neurological levels. Now, it's essentially a pyramid that shows us where the layer that we need to go is for the most effective and long-lasting behavior change. Now, what we can see is at the very bottom, we have environment. So that is your externals, where you are, the setting that you're in. Then we have behavior, self-explanatory, your actions, the things that you're doing, the habits, the patterns. Then we have things like skill and capability. So what you are actually capable of, the skills that you hold in your business, the things that you can do. Then lower than that, we have values and beliefs. So values are the things that you hold near and dear, the things that make you you, and the beliefs that you hold about yourself, about the world, and the things that are essentially ingrained and encoded into your subconscious from a very young age, telling you what to believe. Underneath that, we then have identity. This is your core self-concept, what you believe is true about you, what you believe is possible for you, and who you actually see yourself as. I am, right? And then at the very, very top, i.e. the deepest possible layer, is purpose. This is your guiding light, your North Star. This is what you need, right? Purpose sits at the very deepest layer. It's why we see so many people lose their way when they don't actually have a purpose in their life. Now, the reason that I'm showing you this is most people work all the way down here. And the reason that I love seeing this in real life as a visual is you can see how deep this actually goes. And when we're working with something like behavior, we are missing the mark because it is a surface level solution. That's why things like changing your environment, so moving around and shuffling your room, right? Because you feel like you are looping in procrastination, you feel stagnant, isn't doing a fucking thing for actually shifting your procrastination. The same way that if you just try to get a new 6 a.m. routine, you just try to go to the gym a little bit more to prove to yourself that you are someone who can be consistent, you end up right back where you are because you didn't go deep enough. And not enough people know this. And that's why there are two ways that you can change your life. The first is what I showed you, but there is a secret second option, and that is to change your identity first. And so instead of trying to change your behavior and work all the way up this pyramid, which usually takes years, there's a lot of looping at this point, and maybe eventually some people will end up changing, we can instead shift at the identity level first and filter all this down. This is a bottom-up approach, and this is exactly what I use at Internal Rebrand. This is why we focus so heavily on the identity, because once you shift your identity, everything else changes. What you then believe about yourself, your core values, the skills and capability that you are then able to build because you now see yourself as someone who is worthy, as someone who can be consistent, as someone who absolutely can hold it all. And so each of these start to shift, and then we start to see almost immediately that your behavior shifts too. And so this is the secret second option, and this is where having an alter ego comes in handy. Because when you change who you are being, your behavior follows. Now, this is also something that people have clocked onto, is actually, we then saw this wave of like, oh shit, fake it till you make it is not the way forwards, because we're just doing and hoping that our identity changes. And I'm just acting like someone that I subconsciously don't believe that I am. So what we start to then see is this extension, which is like act as if. This is something you've probably seen in the world of manifestation. This is a big like trend that I've seen on TikTok. To manifest the life, will just act like you already have the life. And I prefer this so much more than fake it till you make it, because when you're acting as if, you are playing into the feeling. And I don't want to spoil this too much, but this is something I'm going to talk about when we talk about how to actually build an alter ego. But when you change who you are being, your behavior will naturally follow, not because you're forcing the behavior first, but because you have rewired your self-concept at a subconscious level. Now, your brain is wired to stay consistent and to protect what it knows, right? It's literally programmed to stay consistent with who you believe you are. So your subconscious identity drives literally every single thing that you do. And because your brain is hardwired to keep you safe, and it's also running 95% of your day, it's always going to go back to the default. And that is what it knows. It does not have the energy, the capacity. It's literally taking care of your breathing, your digestion, like so much of your bodily, what's the word I'm looking for? It's taking care of so many of your involuntary bodily functions that it's not going to be scanning and being like, how do I want to choose to respond to this? It's just going to go for the most hardwired pattern, the most hardwired thing in your brain. And this is where we can tap into a little bit of neuroscience, because once you understand what's actually happening underneath the surface, this will be so much easier for you to grasp. And that is that your brain will always choose the path of least resistance. So this is what it looks like to have your old identity, your old belief, right? That is a thick neural pathway. This is the one that has been repeated. This is the one that has been rehearsed. So of course, it's going to be so much easier for your brain to just default to this. When we are changing our self-concept, when we are updating beliefs, what we hold about ourselves and our identity, this is the new one. It's thin, it's flimsy, but with time, we can switch them over. And this is why repetition is the number one thing here. And this is also the reason that behavior isn't going to do diddly squat, because this is simply what your brain has rehearsed over and over. And so even if you are trying to build a new routine, I'm just going to go with that because it's the easiest service level thing to talk about. When you were trying to build out a new 6 a.m. routine, when you're trying to just go to the gym more consistently without updating your self-concept, what you're doing is acting over here with this entirely different persona almost, but you haven't updated who you see yourself as. And so it's just going to be so much easier for your brain to default back to this. But with the work that we do at Internal Rebrand, this is how we actually start to shift that the other way around. And so if you identify as someone who is inconsistent, then you will act inconsistent. If you identify as someone who is not confident, then you will hesitate, you will delay, you will stutter, you will choke up every time that you go to speak on camera to get more visibility, to grow the business that you know in your heart is so deserving of the visibility, the income, and the impact that you know you can deliver. If you identify as someone who is not ready, then you will delay. If you identify as someone who is less than, not worthy, not good enough, you will self-sabotage every single opportunity that comes across your desk, your DMs. And so at a certain point, it is not a coincidence, it is a pattern. And so this is where we need to start, and this is where we get to use our alter ego to fast track the latter. We are not just trying to act and be someone different without actually looking underneath. And this is the part that everyone misses when they build out an alter ego. And that is why you can have the strategy, the plan, the habits, but if your self-concept, your self-image, your identity hasn't changed, then you will still keep recreating the very same results. And so if you want to change your life, your business, your income, your impact, your relationships, your results, then you have to change your identity. And this is exactly where your alter ego comes in, because it gives you a way to access that new identity before your current one catches up. and it gives you breathing room. So let's dive into how to actually build one in a way that lasts, in a way that feels so good, and in a way that actually guarantees you the results that you have been working towards. Now, before we go any further, let's actually talk about what an alter ego is, because most people simply define this as like a name, a vibe, an outfit, a little bit of like branding. But as so many entrepreneurs will know, branding is not just a fucking color palette. It is so much more. It is your messaging. It is your values. It's what you stand for. It is your mission. And it is the culture, the community that you cultivate, reverse engineered from what your company, what your business actually is. And so the same is for an alter ego. When we talk about internally rebranding, we can use this to our advantage because it is not that fucking definition. An alter ego is a version of you. It's simply a version of you with a different set of rules, and specifically a different set of subconscious rules. Different standards, different beliefs, different reactions, different patterns, different decisions. So let me be really clear. You don't create an alter ego to become someone else. You create one so that you can access behaviors that you currently don't default to because they are hardwired into their subconscious. We're not just doing surface level shit here. So for example, saying the higher price point without your voice wavering, saying the bold, audacious statement that you want to be talking about in your content without overthinking it. Oh, I've just had a light go out. My battery's just died on my light. Pushing harder in your training and working your fucking arse off for the body of your dreams that you deserve. It is not about becoming them, her, permanently. It is about having access to her on demand. And there are so many incredible entrepreneurs, people in this world that have leveraged this, and a lot of them you will know. Beyonce had Sasha Fierce because she felt so shy in herself that she invented an alter ego that allowed her to unleash that on the stage. A more modern example is Tate McRae. She has Tatiana. So when you listen to things like Sports Car, that song, when you've watched any clips of her on the stage, I haven't seen her in concert, I'm sure it'd be fucking amazing. But she literally, you can see the moment that she switches into her alter ego Tatiana, because she then is like, I'm leaving all of this at the door. I am in the fucking zone and I am so sexy. I am going to deliver what needs to be served on a golden platter right now. Kobe Bryant had the Black Mamba when he was going through a really difficult period so that he could take his game on the basketball pitch, that's not the right word, on the basketball court, there we go, to a whole other game. We have Eminem, who invented Slim Shady so that he could say and sing and rap the shit that he wanted to get out there. There are so many examples of this. For this training, let's take the example of Beyonce, right? Beyonce didn't just invent Sasha Fierce for fun. She created a version of herself with a different set of rules. She was fearless, she was dominant, she was untouchable. And so that identity gave her access to behaviors and ultimately what went on to be absolute bangers that skyrocketed her career and her domination in that industry by accessing behaviors that she did not naturally default to. Slim Shady removed the filter. He shifted from, the question being, should I say this, to, well, what would Slim Shady say? Kobe Bryant, Black Mamba wasn't just an emotional move. It was an execution elevation that allowed him to dominate on that court. That identity allowed him to perform regardless of how he felt. And so this is not about just pretending. It's about giving your brain a version of you that it knows how to follow. We bypass all of the how do I do this, getting stuck and looping in behaviors and doubts and limiting beliefs, and we actually just move to fucking moving. And this is where so many people get it wrong. This is where I see so many videos talking about an alter ego, and they use buzzwords like identity without actually understanding the concept of it at a subconscious level, because they try to do this like a mask, and when it doesn't feel feel natural, then they assume that it's not working. But here's what's actually happening in those instances. Your brain is designed to protect what it already knows. We've established this. And so your thoughts, your reactions, your behaviors are patterns. When it is familiar, it equals safety to your brain. And so what starts happening is that the system in your brain called your reticular activating system then slaps on a filter with going like, cool, I know how to be this is safe. And it starts viewing everything in your life through that lens. And it literally prioritizes what feels true for you. So when something is emotionally charged, it's signaling to that reticular activating system like, hey, look out for this. This is important. And so when you try to step into this new version of you, she feels unfamiliar, and therefore your subconscious rejects it because it's like, nope, that's unsafe. It throws up the warning flag and is like, I don't know how to be that. I don't know how to go about the world being that person. I don't have the evidence. And so that is why it feels like you are wearing a mask. And so instead of forcing it, what we are going to do is to actually build it in a way that your brain, that your subconscious can accept, and that it will start to know in a fucking instant. So here is how we're going to do it. Now, step one is absolutely follow all of the usual guidance, right? What we want to do is to give this alter ego a name. And I'm going to tell you a little story. Now, I have actually leveraged this myself on 2 different occasions. If you didn't already know, I am a competitive powerlifter, and I had a business for 5 years doing strength and powerlifting coaching for women. And I had a complete identity collapse on a national competition day. So I was literally had the bar in my hands and my entire self-concept completely fell apart then and there. I felt like I was walking around waiting for someone to find me there and be like, you don't belong here. You're not supposed to be here. My entire being was like, you are not good enough. And it completely aired out on the national platform in front of everyone. And from that moment on, I was like, no longer, because 2 weeks later, I ended up going to hospital because my anxiety got so bad that I was having daily panic attacks for a month after that. So what I did was I invented an alter ego, and this was the first time I saw just how powerful that can be. And I actually invented an alter ego called the Powerlifting Barbie. She was confident, she was fierce, she was so fucking self-assured. She did not back away from a challenge. She was not afraid of hard work. She wholeheartedly believed in herself. And just 12 weeks later, I went and had the best competition of my entire fucking life. I had so much fun on the platform. I even added a very juicy amount to my total. So if you're not aware, powerlifting is squat, bench, deadlift, and you take the biggest lift in all 3, that combined equals your total. And I PB'd big time on all 3 of those lifts on the platform. And I even won best lifter. I got a trophy out of it that says like, you are literally the best of all of the incredible women that we have had competing on this platform today. Evidence that I was a powerlifting Barbie, and it's been something that I've embodied ever since. The second time that I did this was after a very similar experience, but in my business, I invented an alter ego called Bad Bitch Beth. I still use her today, and she is the woman who is a fucking millionaire. She is the woman who is so convicted in every single decision that she makes in her business. She is so convicted in every single offer, her clients, her VA, like everything that she has, she is up here. She is the bad bitch, and she became my alter ego as well. So the first step to this is absolutely having a name, having the characteristics, and all of the fun stuff. So things like the wardrobe, this is absolutely like all of the visual stuff, right? Name, characteristics, what would she be doing? How would she be showing up? What would be her outfits? Blah, 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 blah. All of that, the fun stuff, right? The surface level stuff. And this is usually when most people will stop. They'll go, what would she be doing? How would she be acting? What would she be wearing? What would she be saying? And that's it. They're like, cool, that's your alter ego. Now just go and do what she would do. Go and talk to yourself how she would talk to herself. And then eventually you will be her and you will have the results that she would have built. This is where so many people miss really important steps. Now, caveat to this is I want you to pick the version that you actually need, okay? So not just your dream life version, although you can do this, but I want you to ask yourself, who is the version of me that I need for the thing that I am avoiding? But I want you to ask yourself, who is the version that I need for the thing that I am avoiding? Okay, the reason is this is going to specifically bridge the gap in your subconscious. What our subconscious and our brain hates is not knowing and gaps, right? And it will start to fill them with what I call meaning making systems. So for example, when it can't make sense of the world, it will often flip that meaning onto us and it will fill the gaps any which way. So what we need to do is to bridge the gap with like, what is the thing that I'm not doing and I'm telling myself I don't know how to do, and who is the version that I would need for that specific thing that she knows exactly how to do. Now we have clarity on who she actually is, but we don't stop there, because what we actually need to then do is to make her real in your mind, okay? Now, again, this is where most manifestation misses the trick. We've talked about the differences between fake it till you make it and act as if, but I want to go one step further to that as to how you can actually practice being her so much that your subconscious believes that you are her without you having to actually do a fucking thing. And that is to practice how she feels. What the fuck do you mean by that, Beth? Right. What we're not going to do is just label her. We're actually going to build her. So for example, let me rub these out. I'll redo this whole thing so we can have a little summary. But next is we're going to make her real. So you are going to practice how she stands. You are going to practice how she speaks and how she moves. So let's say you've built out what does she do when it's uncomfortable, or what decisions does she make quickly, right? You are then going to practice. So when I want to make those decisions, how is she standing, right? Because I can sure as shit bet you that, bad bitch Beth, or your equivalent, your alter ego, is not making decisions while she's sat like this, right? She is like this. And the more that we do this, we practice something called our state. And this is where we can actually access those feelings on demand. Something incredible that you need to know about your brain is that firing emotion actually imprints onto these new neural pathways, and it leverages a very similar process in NLP that we use called submodalities, which is where we actually look at how your brain systematically makes up the submodalities of your beliefs, of your identity. And so when we practice the emotions, the feelings, the sensations, this actually creates imprints for our neural pathways to completely shift. This is how we literally use and leverage neuroplasticity alongside NLP. And so when we practice how you stand, you actually have that sensation in your body. You make that feel familiar, which we know the subconscious loves. But what we also do is create the same emotional state. We elicit the state that we want to return to so that we can have this on demand. And the one thing that all three of those have in common is that this is how she feels, right? How she stands, we are practicing that in our body. How she speaks, we're practicing how that feels literally coming up and out of our throat, out of our mouth, how we're projecting that. How she moves, we're thinking about how it actually feels to be in her body. And your brain will follow what is real and what is familiar instead of just not what like sounds good and looks good on paper. And what is so fucking cool about your brain is that when we leverage emotions, something really powerful happens. Now, emotional charge is the actual thing that will give you subconscious change. This is the bit that everyone else talking about alter egos misses. We think about practicing like what she would look like, how she would walk in a room, and like we see all of it, right? We get the visual attachment. We know how she would be talking to herself, what she believes, what she thinks. Brilliant. And we practice that, and repetition is absolutely the number one way to see subconscious change. When we practice, that becomes familiar. We wire those neural pathways more and more. Yes, 100%. But do you know what is going to wire them more powerfully, encode them more deeply, and literally fast track everything and actually guarantee that your subconscious creates that familiarity and safety around who you want to be and this alter ego? Emotional charge. Emotional charge. When we are more emotionally charged, something called salience happens, which is what prioritizes in your brain, right? It prioritizes what feels emotionally charged, and it says, hey, this is important, pay attention to this. Very similar to what we talked about with your reticular activating system. And so not only is it going to fire your reticular activating system to say like, hey, this is important, I need you to pay attention to this, the same way that when you're like, I'm buying a new car. All of a sudden, you start seeing that car everywhere. Like that car was always on the road. There has always been that number of cars in manufacture and on driving around your roads. It's just that now you are primed to see them. This is what emotional charge actually does. And what it also does is it leverages imprinting on neural pathways. This is what I mean about it encoding more deeply. You literally create new neural pathways when something is more emotionally charged. And this is why the first step is actually making her feel real before you go and do a fucking thing. And I'm going to teach you exactly how to do this. You need to practice not only how she stands and how that feels in your body, but what I want you to do for a second is just close your eyes. Whether or not you've done these exercises yet, you will probably have an inkling. You will already know, there'll be some part of you that already knows what they look like, what they would be doing, how they hold themselves, what they are. And what I want you to do is to bring up the picture of them in front of you. And I want you to turn up the brightness on that picture. I want you to let it expand your entire field of vision. If they are associated with a color, if you see a color in that photo, I want you to turn that color up. I want you to let that color fill every single cell in your body. Good. Turn it up. Good. Now that you have that, I want you to notice the feeling that comes up when you see this person, when you see that color. What feeling is that? And where does that feeling sit in your body? Does it sit in your chest? Does it sit in your stomach? Is it like butterflies in your stomach? Is it like flowing through your whole body? Just pay attention to that. This is what it feels like to actually encode a feeling into your body. This is what it feels like to have a state elicited. This is the state that is associated with that version of you. And the more that you practice that, the more real that she feels. The more real she feels, the more it's familiar, and the more familiar they feel, the more that becomes your fucking default, because the power is in the emotion. And this is also why visualizing them will be one of the most powerful tools in your fucking pocket. So the next step is then to visualize. So the more that you practice seeing, the more that you then attach the feeling of how it feels to watch her. Let's say you're doing a visualization where you watch her walk into the room, you watch her make a decision. How does that make you feel? How is she standing? Practice standing like that. How does that emotion sit in your body? Turn that shit up, turn it up, turn it up. See what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you feel. They are the 3 pillars to creating this in your body and subconsciously rewiring. So the 4th stage is then going to be to visualize and to practice feeling, seeing, and hearing what you would hear if you were her and when you see her. Feel, see, hear. Feel what you felt, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. And then you are going to borrow her, okay, in moments that you need her. Stage 5 is you go and borrow her. What we are doing is leveraging her and borrowing her in moments that you need her. So for example, before you're about to step on stage, before you're about to hit record, before you're about to pitch, before you're about to go and come on to and make a move on your partner, before you're about to go and initiate something. And a little caveat to this is to expect resistance, okay? Remember, the first few times that you do this, it's going to feel unnatural. It's not what is known to your subconscious, but that is not failure. This is literally just your current identity trying to pull you back to what it knows because it's safe, because it's your default. So we are not lacking confidence. We are not lacking consistency. We're not lacking discipline. We're simply loyal to a version of you that feels familiar. So these are the stages that I want you to go through, okay? You're going to name her. You're going to literally come up with all of the more surface level things so that you can visually see her, how she looks, what she smells like, what she's wearing, what her aura is, how she walks, blah, 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 blah. But then you are going to define her rules, okay? Not just how she looks, but how she operates. And I want you to make sure that you are choosing the version that you actually need, not the one that you want, not the one that like has the dream life or is just like a little step in front of you, the one that you need to get shit done for whatever phase of life you are in right now. Like Beyonce needed Sasha Fierce so that she could go and be a fucking performer. Slim Shady was needed for Eminem so that he could say the stuff that was going to be controversial, audacious enough that was going to sell records. Kobe Bryant needed Black Mamba so that he could actually level up his performance on the court and become one of the best players of all time. So use this for the version of you that you actually need. Then you are going to make her real, okay? You're going to look at how she feels, actually go into all of the submodalities is what we call it in NLP, but all of the things that we've talked about. Then you are going to visualize her, okay? So not just thinking about how she feels, but then actually practicing how that feels, rehearsing it in your body, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. Then you are going to borrow her in the moments that she was actually needed. And I want you to expect resistance. We talked about this. Clarity breeds confidence. Clarity actually gives you the awareness for all of these. So this is not creating an alter ego that is a fake version of you. This is not fake it till you make it. This is barely even act as if. This is literally internally rebranding, leveraged with an alter ego. You are creating a version of you that your brain can trust. And so next time that you catch yourself thinking like, I can't do that, this feels too stretchy, just ask, well, who could? Go through these stages, and then I want you to let her go first. And as always, if you have loved this video, I would love for you to like, to subscribe for more videos like this. Make sure to connect with me more on Instagram at Internal Rebrand. I am so excited for you to go and implement this, and I will see you in the next video.